This is the place for boomers, Boomer Being, with your host, Leslie Neumer.
Welcome, I'm Leslie Neumer with 95.9 WATD FM. Today, I'll be interviewing the author of a new book, Inheriting Your Spouse's IRA, The Widow's Guide to Keeping More of Her Assets, featuring Bill Harris, owner of WH Cornerstone's Investments and certified financial planner. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate talking about the book.
Well, great to have you. So tell us about your book. What was the motivation for writing it?
Well, the motivation for writing it was, a lot of it was demographics. Again, we have 70 million baby boomers, 70 million plus baby boomers, and the average age of widowhood is, give or take different statistics, is somewhere around the age of 59. So in our practice, we're seeing this quite a bit. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of misinformation out there on how to handle the event. And again, I do a lot of self-study and things like that. You look at tax court cases, private letter rulings, and there's just a plethora of people inheriting IRAs and really just making some simple mistakes that are really costing them a fortune. And if you think about it, you know, if a younger widow, age 59, could live another 30, 35 years or so. That's a long time to be living. You do not want to make a mistake with one of your biggest assets.
I hear you. So what are important steps widows need to take to be more financially sound?
I think the message we want to give today is the message of preparedness. I think it's important for couples to have a discussion about this. At some point, one of them is going to be single. And I think it's important for them to go through a fire drill. If one of them didn't come home, what would happen? The biggest advice we can give people right now is check your beneficiaries. Make sure you have the right beneficiaries name. Sometimes people just forget to do it. We're in the United States where blended families are big. People get divorced, and sometimes they forget to change the beneficiary on their IRA. So just looking at that. I think it was Duracell that had time to change your clock, change your batteries. We always like to say, check your beneficiaries as well. So I think that's an important thing for people to consider. But I think letting people know what your wishes are and where your important documents are is another important thing. I can just tell you a story of, we had a widow situation, and again, in this day and age of digital, with passwords, and I mean, I could spend a whole conversation with you on digital estate planning, but getting into people's accounts and all that other stuff is really tough. And so we had this one case where her husband had everything buttoned up and the I's dotted and the T's crossed, but she didn't know where all the passwords were. And unraveling everything took days, weeks, months, and years. And as the story goes, years later, she goes to move, and under the desk, she found a letter from her husband, a love letter to her with all the passwords, but he never told anyone where it was. So I think it's important that when you have these plans in place, that as a couple, you talk about it regularly, what the plans are, and make sure you have access to each other's accounts. And you can do that real simply with, joint naming beneficiaries. I can't say that enough. Name beneficiaries. People forget it all the time.
Well, that's some great advice. So, Bill, where can listeners find your book?
So if you want me to become a multimillionaire, you can go buy it on Amazon. So that's the first place. It is on Amazon. You can buy it in paperback. You can get a Kindle version for it. But really, our mission is to get people prepared. And if you just go right to our website, which is whcornerstone.com, you can get a free download, a free PDF of the book.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us. It's so important for all of us to engage professionals to advise us, particularly when we're in the midst of stressful life events. And listeners can reach out to Bill by going to whcornerstone.com. You can find a free copy of his book there. And thanks very much for joining us today on the Boomer Being Show.
Thank you for having me.
This has been Boomer Being on WATD.